Eons ago, early in the history of our universe, an asteroid was formed from an explosion, and then it left its ring of fire and began a long trip, destination unknown, hurtling through the vast reaches of space and darkness, occasionally passing other elements, traveling on their own paths to their own destinations. This particular rock was on a far-reaching course that led it through several galaxies until after a several million light-year journey, it eventually entered the Milky Way and found itself at the edge of a young solar system. The asteroid entered, then tumbled its way past several planets, Neptune and Uranus, barely missing them, continuing on its way toward more asteroids that were held in surrounding rings by the gravity of Saturn, again avoiding collisions, and then still traveling fast enough to break free of that gravitational pull, on, toward, and past Jupiter, zooming near Mars, then spiraling in the direction of another planet toward a landmass now known as North America and a specific target that is now known as Middlesboro, Kentucky. So just how did it arrive at Middlesboro, Kentucky, North America? Well, closer and closer, it was pulled by gravity to a collision course with planet Earth, breaking through the atmosphere until finally this longtime space traveler slammed into the ground, leaving a 3-mile diameter impact crater. For millions of years, this area remained unpopulated until prehistoric Indians moved in and settled. And then, from 1750 for about the next 130 years, only a few farmers lived in what was called the Yellow Creek Valley. However, in 1885, a man named Alexander Allen Arthur realized that since the area was rich in coal, timber, and other mineral ores, that it had all the potential for becoming an industrial center. Arthur wasn't able to see a strong railway transportation built, but he was able to find enough supporters to help him build roads, so that even when it turned out that there wasn't as much iron ore as Arthur thought, the large amount of coal in the area allowed for a moderate level of economic prosperity. Hello, I'm Dr. Thomas Walker, and I lived a long time ago, from 1715 to 1794. Now, I'm remembered as being the legal guardian of Thomas Jefferson after his father died, and some of you may have heard of the Cumberland Gap in Kentucky, and the Cumberland Plateau, which lies over parts of eastern Kentucky, eastern Tennessee, and down into northern Alabama. Well, I named them after an Englishman that many people at the time considered a military hero, Prince William, Duke of Cumberland. However, something that is probably much more significant than that is I was the first person to document the existence of coal in Kentucky. Now, because of that, I'm going to be your narrator guide today. You see, in the area that was known as the Yellow Creek Valley, it's now the site of your modern-day Middlesboro, there was a lot of coal found there. And because of my connection, as I mentioned, to coal, I'm going to be the narrator guide from my exploration trip to coal camps to space camps or space colonies. You see, we can learn from history about how to do things today and tomorrow, and a man named George Santayana, in a book he wrote in 1952, said that those who cannot learn from history are doomed to repeat it. Now, basically what that means is we can learn a lot of things from the past about how to do things, both now and in the future, without having to make the same mistakes. It's kind of like, how would you say it? Kind of like being able to delete a mistake before you make it. Now, some of you may be wondering just what similarities there can possibly be between a coal camp, say like the one at Van Leer, Thialca, and Johnson County, and a space colony. And I'm going to make some of those connections. You see, I mentioned I was the first person to document the existence of coal in Kentucky, and just as I was the first explorer into that area, well, my robotic equivalents are already on Mars. The rovers Sojourner, Spirit, Opportunity, and Pathfinder. And in the not so distant future, there will be human explorers. One of you, listening to the sound of my voice, one of you might actually be the first person to set foot on Mars. And even if you never become an astronaut or have no desire to become one, still, the things that you'll learn in these lessons will help you in whatever career you choose to go into. You know, the things about cooperation and honesty and teamwork and effective communication skills. Like I said, whatever career you choose to go into, be it a teacher or a scientist, a cook, a dancer, a dietitian, an electrician, or you might want to be an archaeologist or a coal technologist, a psychologist or a geologist, secretary, whatever. And they will even help you with those chores that you do around the house to contribute to your family. So we're going to examine some things that will be the same between a coal camp, like the one at Happy in Perry County, and Space Colony, but we're also going to look at some things that we usually don't think about that will be quite different. A drink of water, for example. We all know that we cannot survive very long without water. Now, we don't know exactly how many people will be a part of the first Mars settlement, but we do know that there are 7 members on current space shuttle missions, so let's talk about just drinking water for that many. It takes about 6 months each way to travel to Mars, so that's a year. Add on 500 days for study and exploration, and you have more than 800 days. If each person consumes 1/2 gallon of water per day, that's 3.5 gallons per day. Multiply that by 800 days, and you have 2,800 gallons. A gallon of water weighs about 8 pounds, so now we have 22,400 pounds, or a little over 11 tons. And that's just for drinking. There will also be water needed for cooking and many other things. So it's just not going to be feasible to send water from Earth to Mars. Now, Mars is like Earth as far as having a north and a south pole, and there are polar ice caps at each of them. Since most of the atmosphere up there is composed of carbon dioxide, the top layer is dry ice. But it has been fairly recently discovered that underneath there is a lot of water ice. As a matter of fact, in 2003, during part of an exploration mission by the European Space Agency, radar equipment on the Mars Express showed that it looks like that there is enough water at the south pole of Mars to have water cover the entire planet 35 feet deep. So the water is already there, but we're going to have to dig for it. And that is exactly what we've always had to do in order to get coal. So we're going to look at how we can get water for survival in Mars space colonies in much the same way as our ancestors used coal for survival. You see, whenever there's some item that is really important to our existence, well, people tend to go where it is. When coal was found in large amounts, then coal camps sprung up around it. Coal camps like Auxure and Wayland and Wheelwright, Floyd County. So we'll look at similarities between my trip and the coal camps and the space camps or space colonies in the areas of the exploration and infrastructure, or the systems and services that are needed to survive, and also the societal structure. Now, of course, we know that as people, we need to do more than just survive. So we'll also ask questions like, well, in their free time, in these space colonies, what kind of games will these people want to play?
Look at that. Let's wait. Let's stop and look at this. Children, as you look out over this beautiful land, try to imagine what it must have been like for the first person looking out over all this area. I can imagine that he was probably feeling some excitement, knowing that he was the first person to discover and explore many new things in this area. Let's try to think of some areas that are unexplored in our present day and what it would be like to be the first person to go there.
When I forgot to turn off the water last night, my dad said he was ready to put me on the first spaceship to Mars, trying to make me appreciate water a little bit more.
Well, Alex, I guess you have your own reasons for going, but there's lots of reasons why we explore new areas. Why Dr. Thomas Walker was one of the first sailors to come through this way. Why do you suppose he came through the Cumberland Gap?